This program is brought to you by the Practicing Law Institute, a nonprofit learning organization dedicated to keeping attorneys, professionals, and accountants at the forefront of knowledge and expertise.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You know what, Kurt? I don't know if the coat check at this party, they said that they had my coat under the right number. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get it back. You know, you just look at the person's eyes and you know they just threw it on a pile in the back of the closet there.
I think I see it lying on the bed behind you here in our virtual party space.
It's cold up here in Buffalo, Kurt. You got to have the layers at the ready.
I'm still just in a sweater down here in Virginia, but
nice.
It's good to see you, man. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's. We're here on the second to last day of the year, hosting our, hopefully what becomes an annual event, our inSecurities New Year's party with some of our favorite guests from the past year and a half in attendance here today. We'll see who we can get to chat on some of their favorite topics as we go forward.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to wander around the virtual party room here and just catch up with some of our guests that we've talked to over the last year. We've been fortunate to have some really good ones, and some of them were gracious enough to come back, and we're looking forward to talking with them again.
I can't believe that people want to talk to us multiple times in the same year, Kurt. It's a tough bridge to cross, but apparently some folks have had a good time with the podcast, and we hope you listeners out there have kind of seen the fun and enjoyment that we get and sharing some of the wonky and fresh things that we get to deal with, both as practitioners and alongside our guests.
All right, yeah, I think I see some fun folks here in the virtual room. We've got Dan Taylor from Wharton. I think I see Commissioner Peirce over there.
There's a VIP for you.
Right, we've got Jane Norberg from Arnold and Porter and more. So hang in there, everybody. We're going to have some fun and talk to some of what I hope are your favorite guests on the inSecurities podcast.
Hey, Kurt, look who it is, our good friend, Professor Dan Taylor from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Professor Taylor, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you? Thanks for passing me the champagne.
That's right.
Happy to do it. You know, it's nice to actually talk with you instead of just, trading barbs on Twitter for once.
Well, they're not barbs. They're, for the benefit of society and educational debate. And I think it's good that everybody get both sides.
I think that's Twitter's mantra, right? For the education of the
for the good of society.
You got it. So, Professor Taylor, we're here. It's December, end of the year. How'd the first semester go this year with everything going on?
Semester went really well. Fantastic, in fact, closing out on a high note. Looking forward to 2022 and seeing what the new year brings.
So you won't be surprised to learn that episodes where we talk about insider trading are really popular with our guests. And you came on with Alan Jagalinzer from Cambridge on episode 38 way back in May. It doesn't feel that long ago, but it's been quite a while. We covered a ton of ground in that episode, including Rule 10b-5-1, which sort of allows corporate insiders to set up trading plans so they can legally buy or sell company stock. It's been kind of a big deal lately, Professor Taylor. I don't know if you heard, but there was an open meeting of the commission recently where the commission voted unanimously to propose amendments to Rule 10b-5.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I didn't hear.
Unanimously, is that? Yeah, unanimously to propose amendments to Rule 10b-5-1. Why don't you tell us what's going on there? You know better than anybody.
Yeah, so I guess the upshot is that the proposal's got two key flanks, for lack of a better term. The one proposal is to impose a mandatory cooling off period, approximately 4 months. I think technically it's 120 days. Between when the plan is adopted and when the plan can first execute a trade. And then the second plank is additional disclosure around those plans and around those trades. So now on Form 4 filings on Edgar, there'll be a little blank that'll have the date that the plan was adopted and the little checkbox for whether the trade on the Form 4 was pursuant to a 10b5-1 plan. And in addition, there's going to be required disclosure in the quarterly and annual filings regarding the executive's use of these plans. So I think it's a pretty big deal. I think it's been a long time coming. People have been talking about 10b5-1 plans probably for like a year after they actually got implemented back in the 2000s. So it's something that's long overdue. And what I liked about the proposal was it was in fact bipartisan. I think that these days we need all the bipartisan proposals that we can get, and the fact that it isn't bipartisan really shows how much these plans need to be cleaned up. Because it's really hard to get agreement on things, and I was pleased to see there's at least agreement on insider trading and 10b5-1 plans.
I mean, Kurt was kind of hinting, didn't know if you heard. Professor Taylor, I think we're understating your participation in the awareness about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I've gotten a lot of kudos on Twitter and LinkedIn, and it's nice to be recognized. I did have a former chief economist at DERA send me a note saying that he's never seen an academic paper cited so many times in a rule proposal that basically suggested very similar changes to what the SEC is actually doing. And, to be honest, it's I cracked open a really good bottle of wine when the proposal got through unanimously, and it's really nice to see evidence-based policymaking. I think that nowadays it's hard to think of evidence-based policymaking. Different teams cite different statistics and cite different evidence in favor of their own view, and in this case, the evidence is somewhat overwhelming. And so it was good to get consensus on that.
It's always nice to have your work cited. I think it probably feels better when it's in a positive way. I recall being footnoted in one of Commissioner Peirce's speeches once, and I'm not sure that it was altogether positive. But that's neither here nor there.
Professor Taylor, we're looking forward to 2022. We're asking everybody at this virtual cocktail party resolutions for 2022. Personal. You can direct them at a certain agency if you would like to see them have a resolution in the new year. What are you looking forward to with 2022, and what's kind of on your list of things you're working towards?
Yeah, I'm not sure about things that I'm working towards.
Got it. So we're gonna put some targets on.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to hear like, okay, I need to walk more, I need to do some more exercise.
Yeah. Eat more vegetables, the regular stuff, yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I am anxious to see there have been some changes to the Reg Flex agenda that have flown probably under the radar. They're not sort of sexy or glamorous topics that are going to get your listeners excited. But, the SEC is still accepting paper filings. So I'll repeat that. The SEC is still accepting paper filings.
We'll be into 2022, which is another year.
At this rate, correct. I think we did the statistics. There's over 300,000 of these filings over the past 2 decades. They're in the reading room. You guys get access to the reading room now? No. It's closed during COVID. So where are the paper filings going? Don't know. They're not online. So the SEC allows filers to submit some of these paper filings should they choose via email, but is not mandating that they go in via email, so they're still getting paper filings in. So I would like to see, so low ask, very low ask, hopefully again another bipartisan proposal. I would like the SEC to require electronic reporting of all filings and get those things posted on Edgar.
I think that's it. Sounds reasonable, right? It's more like, I'm going to sign up for the gym in 2022. Not I'm going to go all the time, but I am going to sign up. And
I mean, who's against electronic filings? And how's the DERA cost-benefit analysis going to look like there? It's like, what's the cost of electronic filings? Not really sure. What's the benefit? Big deal. People can get access to it.
That's great.
And again, should be bipartisan. So I think, it's kind of a shame in some sense that I think based on the media and public scrutiny and all of these things, we get focused on like payment for order flow, and I promised myself I wouldn't say it, but Reg BI.
Another mention.
But there's some serious information plumbing problems that need to get fixed. And hopefully those will get fixed in the new year.
Seems reasonable. We hope to revisit with you at our what will be an annual event now, our inSecurities podcast New Year's Eve extravaganza.
As you walk around the cocktail tables, you should ask people, have you talked with Taylor? Does it seem reasonable that the SEC should be engaged in electronic reporting? And let me know if you find anybody that says no. They still want to see paper filings.
We'll be checking in with them.
It'll be very unofficial scorekeeping here at inSecurities. So not up to your statistical standards,
right.
But we'll give you a readout. Yeah.
Good. Well, great to see you, sir. Have it.
Happy New Year. Thanks for making some time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Take care, guys. See you around.
Kurt, I can't believe it. For the second time this year, and thankfully here at our virtual cocktail event, we've got Commissioner Peirce with us. Commissioner, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, Chris and Kurt, it's a delight to be with you, and of course, I'm glad that you all are serving the kind of cookies that I particularly like for Christmas. So that's a good start.
Well, we were going to serve chocolate-covered cicadas, but we ran out, unfortunately.
Even better. Well,
I would have been all over those.
Commissioner, a lot has happened since we spoke with you back in April, specifically about ESG, but as well as other things that have occurred this year. We've got Commissioner Gensler has set out a robust regulatory agenda. We've seen some rulemaking proposals specific especially to the 10b5-1 trading plan area, and the enforcement regime seems to be ticking up. What are some of your thoughts on the significant developments, or maybe even some of the things that haven't developed over the past few months?
Of course, before I talk to you, even at a party, I have to remind you that my views are my own views and not necessarily those of the SEC or my fellow commissioners. Well, just in terms of the robust agenda, it is a miracle that I'm actually here at your party, given all that Chair Gensler has put on the agenda. And I think we're going to see a very active 2022. We've already seen quite a few rule proposals coming out in 2021. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what commenters have to say about those. I am concerned about some of the short comment periods because some of these are fairly complex rulemakings. But I think it will be interesting to see what folks have to say. And then, in terms of the enforcement agenda, I think we look at those on a case-by-case basis. So people are always looking for trends, but it's also important to look at each case on its facts.
Yeah, absolutely. You aren't the first person today that's mentioned some of the short comment periods. We had Dan Taylor from Wharton on earlier to talk a little bit about the 10b5-1 amendments or proposed amendments, and he also noted the short comment period there. So, there continues to be a lot of agreement around that rule.
Well, I hope that we can agree to extend some of those comment periods because I think we will get a lot of thoughtful comments, and it's also important to understand how the rule proposals work with one another, and that's something that people will, I think, be able to comment on, but will be able to do that better if they have that longer time frame.
Yeah, I completely agree. When we talked to you a few months ago, one of the things that we really focused on naturally was your speech titles. And you have continued to really bring it with some excellent speech titles in the last couple of months. We've had rat farms and rule comments, which was a statement about the unintended consequences of rulemaking. We had a speech about the so-called inside chicken, which was about companies' decisions around going public and SPACs. Of course, back in July, you gave the speech called Chocolate-Covered Cicadas, which we talked about a moment ago. But I don't know that any has captured public fascination like the remarks you gave a couple of weeks ago at the open meeting when the commission voted unanimously to propose rule amendments for 10b5-1. And you had this fantastic line in there that had social media all A Twitter.
Yeah, he did it.
Yeah.
A Twitter.
So here it is. I was beginning to feel a bit like the Grinch this holiday season. Singing in Whoville on Christmas morning caused the Grinch's heart to grow 3 sizes that day. But it was my fellow commissioners' willingness to collaborate and engage on this release with the help of Renee Jones and her staff and Corey Clemmer on the chair's staff that won me over and led me to support this proposal. Chair Gensler, of course, replied, "I never thought of you as the Grinch," to which you said something like, "Just wait." It was hilarious. I have to know, was that planned?
That was not planned. The Grinch statement was planned for sure. It was actually really nice to be able to all be united on voting for that particular rule proposal, and I think we all shared the view that there could be some improvements made here in terms of allowing for a little bit of a lag period between adopting a 10b5-1 plan and trading on it. Of course, again, we'll see what the commenters have to say on that. But as far as the Grinch, I was feeling at the rest of the meeting a bit like a Grinch, so I'm glad that Chair Gensler took it in stride.
It was great. It was a great moment.
And I can just see all the commissioners holding hands and swaying back and forth, singing in the Whoville Town Square together, especially on that specific vote. So 2021 has been a year packed with a lot of different things we've talked about here at this party with many of our guests. But Commissioner, it's New Year's Eve. We're thinking about 2022. Kurt and I are thinking about our resolutions, but we're interested for you, what type of securities regulatory resolutions might you or you have for the Commission in 2022?
Well, I think the Commission should, one, stick to its knitting, so not try to wander outside of its area of expertise in the area it was charged with by Congress. So one of the determinants of that, I think, is that we should be limiting ourselves to disclosure mandates tied to materiality. And I know that's something that's related to what we talked about before. And then second, I would say we should just be humble. I think it's important for every regulator to be humble, and the area in which we regulate is very broad. And we have much to learn from people outside of the Commission. So I would say humility is always a good resolution. Third resolution I would say is let's lead by regulation, not by enforcement. And that applies not only to crypto, which is an area that I talk about a lot, but I think other areas as well. If there are things that we're seeing that we think should stop, I think the first way to address that is through regulation, guidance, and then if those things are not adhered to, then to bring enforcement actions.
I'm sure the crypto kids will be very glad to hear that we're not promoting a regulation by enforcement in the crypto space. So that's good news, I'm sure. The Defense Bar might like it too. But Commissioner, thank you so much for carving out some time to come and chat with us.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and I didn't mention Reg BI, so I'm just going to say bye.
Get it, Reg BI. Commissioner, one quick one for you. Any upcoming speech titles we should be on the lookout for? What delicacies are we going to get in the spring?
Speeches. I can't give any speeches because you all haven't given me any fodder for titles, so I'm just at a loss. So until you all come through, it's there's going to be
I guess
nothing
the
happening.
album names didn't get her last time, Kurt. We got to come up with a better theme.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you said that, because I was kicking around this idea that Chris is going to hate, but since it's New Year's, I was thinking, Old Lang Syne, why the old materiality rules should still apply.
Oh, I like it.
I mean, listen, a good rhyme.
That might work.
Oh, that's
I
excellent.
don't know if I can come up in time with a song for us to sing this evening as the ball drops, but I'm going to go work on it right now.
The lyricist will get it done. Well, thanks so much, Commissioner. We hope all the best for you and yours in the new year, and for joining us today. We're so happy to get to share this time with you.
Well, thanks for having me, and I love your podcast, so keep up the good work.
Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Bye.
So, Professor Karen Woody, it's good to be with you again. I think since the last time we talked, you spent a couple months on leave or on break from the Washington and Lee School of Law. What were you up to?
That is right. I was on sabbatical in the spring after a successful tenure vote, which I was very grateful for. And so I was working on writing, researching all the usual academic things, mostly on insider trading type work. Also, a few things about internal controls that are still in the mix. Still working on it, but yeah, it was a nice, much needed, I think, sabbatical.
Awesome. Congratulations! Hopefully, being on the inSecurities podcast helped with that. I know we sat down. God, it seems like yesterday, but it was almost a year ago on episode 30, way back in January of this year, to talk about the Biden administration, and what the regulatory environment might look like after the inauguration. We were joined by UCLA law professor Jim Park as well. And it feels a while ago, not just in the time, but also in the events. That was before this whole thing called meme stocks and GameStop happened. This is before we had this ESG enforcement task force spinning up, before Chair Gensler was confirmed, before Gravir Graywall was appointed as Director of Division of Enforcement. So we've had all these things happening across the gamut here. I don't know if that's because of you taking leave and then all these things happened, or if that's unrelated, but what have you been paying attention to kind of on the headlines of the securities enforcement regulatory landscape in 2021?
Yeah, I think, everything you mentioned obviously are the highlights, but I do think the bigger picture for me is that I don't see it as much as it is certainly the Biden administration SEC, but to me it really does feel like the Gensler SEC. I mean, ever since he was appointed, we've seen a heavy sort of steady drumbeat of the SEC taking a tougher tone toward things. To me, it harkens back a little bit to the Mary Jo White era of no broken windows. There seems to be that similar tack coming in with this Gensler crew, and certainly with Graywall as well. And so I almost laughed, and I thought, the Biden SEC, I don't think of it even that way as much anymore. It's much more of we're going tough, we're going to have increased penalties, we might back away from no admit, no deny settlement. So it does feel like we're back with the tough sort of cop on the beat at the agency.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's going to be interesting to see how much of this is rhetoric and how much of it is real, but time will tell. Well, look, since it's been a year, and since you were brave enough to tell us what you thought might be on the horizon when we talked to you, I know those pesky predictions. So I want to revisit, maybe one or two of them. One of the things that we talked a lot about, and something I know that you focus on, is ESG, and that comes out of your experience with the conflict minerals rules. That's a few years old now, but you sort of said, look, ESG information is something that investors are interested in now, and I think you said something like investors want to know where companies put their money. And you said, and I've pulled the quote here, I think all of this is going to come back to the forefront in this administration and in the SEC's priorities. So you kind of nailed it. Yeah. But what do you think? Is the wind blowing in the direction you expected with respect to ESG?
It really is. It's hard to open a paper at all, and not see that term. I remember this time last year, people were still trying to remember what those initials stood for and that kind of thing. And now it's in everyone's wheelhouse, it seems. So I think what's interesting about ESG, and as I said a year ago, is that the materiality difference between that and the conflict minerals, sort of the way in which this came to the forefront, is very much, in my mind, sort of pushed from the ground up, from investors, as opposed to top down, straight from Congress or even from the agency itself. So it seems almost that it's a response to a very loud cry from investors. That said, I think ESG was still tricky and hard to get our arms around because it is such a huge tent. I mean, there's things where E, S, and G don't even necessarily talk to each other in terms of those three different areas. And so how the SEC moves forward on this, I think they will take it very piecemeal. I expect to see the climate rules, things like that, disclosures come first. But there's so many other matters that fall under the umbrella of ESG, so I think it will be around for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're going to ask you one more while we got you. You already hinted at enforcement when we talked to you last year. You mentioned insider trading. You mentioned COVID-related enforcement actions, which we were all expecting. Haven't really seen it. Spoiler alert. And you talked a little bit about FCPA. I don't know how those are sort of shaking out as priorities for, I guess, Director Graywall. But what do you think?
No, and I would agree with you. We haven't seen much. Certainly, we haven't seen much on COVID fraud as much as we thought we would this time last year. I think, to me, I think where we're going, or where I'd hope to see us go in terms of regulation, enforcement, I hope involves crypto. I think that we're never going to get away from that either. That's going to be something that most people are expecting some clarification on. Yeah. Same with ESG somewhat. And then SPACs. I think we'll need to see some additional regulation, not only through enforcement actions, but maybe some more proactive, clear rules around those. I'm not sure if we'll see that in the immediate future, but I think that's going to be one that we'll have to get some additional clarity on.
For sure.
We're here at our virtual New Year's Eve cocktail party, Professor Woody. We want to know what resolutions everybody has, but with that securities, with that regulatory bent. So if you could prescribe a resolution for, say, the SEC or for Congress related to the topics that we cover, what do you think a good aspirational resolution for them would be?
I think there should be some jurisdictional resolution between some of the agencies on these big picture things, and I think mostly of crypto. I think the, how we carve that up between CFTC, SEC, all that is one that I think if we could resolve that or make a resolution about that, we'd have additional clarity going forward on it. So that's one, and maybe people could put aside some of whatever the flexing they're trying to do to either carve that into the jurisdiction or to walk away from it, either one. But I would like to see that have additional clarity on sort of which agency covers what.
I mean, Professor Woody, I think the SEC has made clear that they've given ample guidance in this space. I mean, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why we've only had 11 episodes of our podcast about crypto, because it's so
trying
clear.
to figure it out.
Exactly.
Excellent.
All right. Well, it's good chatting with you. Thanks for coming back to visit with us.
Always. I'm always happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, wishing you a happy new year and all the best in the next semester.
Thanks.
Kurt, wouldn't you know it? Here we've got our good friend, Professor James Tierney. Professor Tierney, how's it going?
Hey there.
It's going well. It's good to see you
Good
guys.
to be chatting with you again. How are things going at the Nebraska College of Law? Did you get through the semester? Papers graded? Everybody off on their holiday break?
Yeah, everyone is off on break. I'm still in the middle of grading, but it's great to see all of my students engaging so deeply with securities and business law issues. I'm always so impressed by how much they pick up over the semester. So grading, it's something that we love to complain about, but I love seeing it from the
Kind of
students.
shows you how well you've taught them, right? What they've picked up over the semester. So a little bit on you there.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so you were with us back on episode 52. I have to say, I didn't notice a huge uptick in downloads after that from students. I mean, you're going to have to put this on the syllabus next semester.
Yeah, I got to do a little bit. Maybe I have to hire a hype man or something.
Kurt does parties. Kurt does do parties.
Yeah, exactly. So when you were on the show with us, we talked a little bit about gamification, which is using user experience design features, mostly in trading applications was the context we talked about it to maybe nudge investors or influence their behavior. I mean, that's a couple months ago now. So what's been going on since then? Anything touching on this space?
Yeah, so there's. I'll say that the SEC has a lot on its plate, right? So if you take a look at the agency's, proposed regulatory agenda for next year, they have dozens of ongoing rule proposals, and that's taken up a lot of time with the staff. Both the GameStop report and the DEP proposal or request were both a bit cagey on prescriptions about what the SEC wants to do, and so from this point forward, the staff is mostly in the process, just a couple months out from that RFI deadline for the DEP report, to figure out what kinds of proposals might be in the interest of protecting investors and the public interest. And so I would expect to hear inklings about what the SEC is going to start doing without undertaking formal rulemaking, adopting informal guidance, explaining what existing tools bear on this space sometime early in the next year. And then I think from then on, we can probably expect to see separate rulemakings, both for broker-dealers and investment advisors, on gamification and DEPs. There are hints beyond the regulatory agenda that talk about how the SEC might be trying to address this. The agency's budget justification to Congress for the next fiscal year promised that it's going to implement Reg BI in ways that support investor protection, and that the agency's trying to think about ways that they can kind of modernize or provide guidance in ways that improve Reg BI and quote lives up to the promise of the name. The SEC also has this notice of proposed rulemaking on the reg agenda for some time, looking at equity market structure modernization. And so, the scope of that has seemed to grow over time, and you could imagine the staff trying to use some of that regulatory space to deal with the broader, market structure problems in the retail investor context. But for right now, there's a lot of stuff going on, and so it's probably a time of deliberation and processing comments and figuring out where to go from here.
It's good for that year-end kind of reflection, it sounds like, Professor Tierney. And although you referenced grading earlier, I think when we spoke, you were talking about a paper that you were working on that's due to come out hopefully in the next few months. Any updates on that?
Yeah, so I have a couple projects in this space. One is with my colleague here at Nebraska, Kyle Langvart, and this is an essay coming out in hopefully the next couple months or so in Yale Law Journal Forum online. And we talk about why the SEC shouldn't pursue what we call confetti regulation, direct command and control regulation of software design because of definitional problems and litigation risk. I also have another paper that I submitted to the agency in connection with the request for information on DEPs that takes a closer look at that broader issue of gamification. This is something that I'm still working on, presenting it at a law school conference in a couple weeks, but hopefully that will also be published sometime in the spring. So both of those are up online, and if anyone has comments, they're always welcome.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that an academic paper or research maybe nudges the commissioners a little bit to take some action, right? Yeah. So look, I understand that things that may or may not take shape with respect to gamification maybe fit within what the commission is already doing. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they need a little guidance. But, this is sort of like a New Year's party, right? So we're looking forward to 2022 and thinking about some New Year's resolutions. So, Professor Tierney, if you were sitting in an SEC commissioner's chair, what would be your New Year's resolution for gamification or DEPs?
Yeah, that's a great one. I have a long list of my own New Year's resolutions, but from thinking just from that perspective, I guess I would want to take a closer look at the general problem of retail market structure. The agency probably could bear spending a little bit of its attention and resources thinking about the underlying problem behind gamification and DEPs, and maybe even meme stocks, right? The idea that we're encouraging people to churn their own accounts in order to generate, noisy order flow that might be profitable for big traders. You can think of it as a kind of digital farming, and maybe it's good to encourage people to participate in the market, but maybe not if it just leads them to trade more, which isn't necessarily better for them. And so if we do think of it as digital farming, maybe regulators should be kind of thinking about how to address this problem. The other flip side to this, and it's the elephant in the room that I don't think you can really tackle retail market structure without thinking about, is the SEC and Congress need to figure out what they're doing with a coherent view on crypto regulation. And I am not a crypto guy, and I don't mean to make this about crypto, but all of the kind of really big players in the gamification space, and I have in mind here Robinhood, right? They appeal to a group of retail traders who want to trade crypto, and to the extent that retail market structure is kind of going to be up in the air for a really long time, as the regulatory status of crypto remains contested, the more the the agency can provide clarity to the market one way or another, I think is going to bear on how we think about how brokers and other intermediaries influence retail investor behavior. So those are just a couple of things. It's easy for me to say that the agency should think more about retail market structure, but I think there's always room for more attention to that.
I mean, those are big blocks. I think you'd fit right in on Gary Gensler's commission, because I know there's a lot on the agenda. And I love this digital farming concept. Actually, I've heard that term come up a few times just within the last couple of weeks. So maybe that just suggests we're starting to think about this in a different way. Anyway, James, great to see you. Thanks for chatting with us.
Enjoy the party, James. Hope you have a great New Year's Eve and a great New Year.
Thanks to you as well.
Hey, Kurt, what are you drinking over there at the virtual party?
Oh, you know me. I'm always enjoying some kind of holiday IPA this time of year.
Got it. Big winter warmer guy. I love it. Did I ever tell you the story about Aleworks Brewery in Williamsburg, Virginia?
No, but they actually have one of my favorite beers that I'm drinking right now. They've done a coffee stout for the holiday season that is
What's it called?
Delicious. I think it's called Coffee House Stout.
Very subtle description.
Anyway, I stole your thunder. Tell me about Aleworks.
So Aleworks has been a great place. My wife and I went down and did the Christmas lights one year a few years ago, and kind of fell in love with the brewery. They made a winter warmer, which is that kind of nutmeggy, spicy beer that you enjoy around the holidays, and they called it Marley's Lament, as a nod to Scrooge's partner from A Christmas Story.
Charles Dickens classic.
Amazing beer. Drank it for 4 or 5 years. Every holiday season, we'd show up at the beer store, and they'd say, "You're the people here to buy cases of Marley's Lament." Wouldn't you know it, Kurt? Aleworks stopped making it in 2016, I believe. 2017 rolls around, we buy out the store, their last bottles. 2018 rolls around, there is no Marley's Lament to be had. So before coming back to Western New York for the holiday season, we called the brewery, and they told us that they had one case left that was at the store across the street from them. They held it for us, and I didn't have time with the client workload I was doing to get down to Williamsburg from DC to do it. So we actually hired a Task Rabbit to drive down to Williamsburg, pick up the beer, drive it back. It was the most painless experience we had. And thankfully, the cost of the Task Rabbit and the beer came out under what we would have had to have it at retail. So I think we still have one bottle left. I'm sure it is god-awful at this point, being 5 or 6 years old, but Marley's Lament from Aleworks is one of our favorites of all time.
Well, I lean into one of my local favorites. There's a brewery here in Richmond called Hardywood. All of their beers are amazing, but they are pretty famous for their holiday beers. They've got a couple that tend to rank among the top few in the country every winter. They're heavy, they're strong, but if you need something to get you going, Christmas pancakes is amazing.
Wow.
There's a little bit of a sort of mapley flavor in the background, just the right amount of cinnamon. It's delicious, but tread carefully, because that comes in around 9%.
Yeah, make sure you've got your logistical ride or even getting up the stairs sorted out before you do
you can downshift a little to the gingerbread stout, and another delicious beer, if you want to get closer to the 8% range. But yeah, Hardywood, if you're anywhere in the mid-Atlantic, you can find it in a grocer near you. All right, Chris, so let's I see Jane Norberg in our virtual New Year's Eve party.
Right.
Let's go say hey to Jane.
How are you?
Jane, how are you? It's great to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm glad to be here. I love these virtual drinks. They're my favorites. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So you were with us a few months ago, and for anybody who doesn't remember, Jane was the head of the SEC's Office of the Whistleblower. She's now a partner at Arnold & Porter. But you were with us for episode 47, which is actually one of our most popular ever. So thank you for that. People just love hearing about whistleblowers and the SEC's whistleblower program, but that's probably no surprise to you.
No surprise at all. It's a very popular program.
That's right, and popular episode. So apart from the program and the episode being so popular, in the interim, we've seen the Office of the Whistleblower report come out for 2021. Jane, you know me, I'm an accountant. Those numbers are insane. You know, we've got over 12,000 tips received, the most ever in a single year by leaps and bounds, as well as awards going out the door, both from a dollar's perspective and those awardees. More than 1.1 billion with a B to 214 individuals since the program has started. What were your reactions to the report that came out a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same as yours. It was an amazing year for the SEC's Office of the Whistleblower. Record-breaking number of tips, as you said, record-breaking number of awards received. To put into perspective, the Commission ordered whistleblower awards of approximately $564 million to 108 individuals. But the interesting part is that was in connection with 86 different enforcement actions. So really a large number of enforcement actions. And as you mentioned, the number of tips just went through the roof with over 12,000 received, which is up from, I think it was a little over 6,000 last year. So it almost doubled, which is an amazing thing in and of itself. I mean, to me though, the biggest takeaway from the annual report was the massive international nature of the SEC's whistleblower program. And the really interesting stat that was sort of buried in there, I read it word for word since it was my old program, but the one thing that I was a little shocked at was that the successful awardees from last year that the Commission has paid hailed from 6 different continents. So 6 different continents is crazy, right?
That's
so
almost all of them, right?
Yeah, that leaves literally one continent in the entire world that doesn't have an SEC award winner living on it, right? I mean, that is incredibly eye-opening, right? Should be an eye-opening stat, certainly for companies who do business in other countries. But even for me, who's been with this program from the beginning, I mean, I knew obviously we were paying people internationally, but that stat was lost on me until I actually read it in black and white and thought, holy cow, never when this program started did I envision that we would be paying, the SEC would be paying people in that many continents. So just a massive international.
To our large audience out in Antarctica, if you're holding back on reporting to the Office of the Whistleblower, call in. I mean, everybody's doing it. 12,000 of your friends are there. Don't be limited by your geography.
Who knows?
Right.
Maybe it is in Antarctica. We don't know.
Well, look, I mean, I have to imagine if you love triaging 2,000 or 3,000 tips, you've got to really love handling 12,000. Right. So, I mean, Jane, what does this mean for the program? That just seems almost impossible to manage.
Yeah, it's a lot. So actually, the Office of the Whistleblower relies on the Office of Market Intelligence at the SEC to triage the tips for the very reason you said. There just isn't enough staff in the Office of the Whistleblower to handle everything they need to do on a day-to-day with supporting enforcement staff on investigations and then doing everything they need to do behind the scenes to get these awards paid out. So the Office of Market Intelligence triages every single one of those tips that comes in. And not only that, all the other tips that the SEC receives outside of the whistleblower program. So, hats off to them for the huge uptick in tips and being able to get through all that in a year. It's a lot of work.
And with that, Jane, we're here, kind of New Year's time frame. One of the things Kurt and I always like to talk about are our resolutions. And in this case, we want to hear what your resolutions might be, not just for you, but for the Office of the Whistleblower. What do you see them focusing on, or would you hope they focus on in 2022?
Well, I think the Office of the Whistleblower is going to keep doing what they're doing. I mean, the staff there that I've worked with for almost a decade, I mean, they're really top-notch, stellar individuals. They have a new leader at the helm. My assumption is they're going to keep doing what they're doing, which is intaking whistleblower tips, supporting investigations, and paying out awards. So my assumption is they're going to just keep going full steam ahead like they've been doing. And the other thing I would mention, if I can just delve into another whistleblower program, if that's okay. Because we mentioned this on the podcast that I had done with you, that there's this sort of rise of new whistleblower programs out there based on the success of the SEC's whistleblower program. And so in the world of whistleblowing in general, my wish would be for FinCEN to propose rules to the new Anti-Money Laundering Act whistleblower program, which is largely based on the SEC's whistleblower program, but with some confusing exceptions. And so banks, firms, and other clients that I represent who are subject to the program, which, by the way, the program is active with or without the rules. You know, these companies would be better served to know what exactly is expected of them under this new program, especially when they're subject, in some instances, to both the SEC's whistleblower program and now this new Anti-Money Laundering Act whistleblower program, for which there are no rules. So that would be my wish.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. I'm with you because there are some interesting overlaps, at least in terms of the entities that may be subject to both sets of, or to both acts. I can't say both sets of rules, but maybe soon I'll be able to.
Technically speaking, of course.
Well, it's really good chatting with you. Thanks so much for coming to the party. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, happy holidays, Jane. Take care.
All right, so Chris, do you know who I see on the other side of our virtual party room?
I mean, it's so packed here, Kurt. I can't tell.
It's none other than Professor J.W. Verret, one of the oldest friends of the inSecurities podcast. Professor, thanks for being here. How you doing?
Cheers, gentlemen. Happy New Year.
Yeah,
And to you, oldest only in your tenure of support, Professor, not in your actual age. We've got some older. We won't share who those guests are, who those supporters are, but glad to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. We were just talking about Old Lang Syne with Commissioner Peirce not long ago, and so it's good to remember an old acquaintance. Yeah, Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year. It's been a crazy year for securities law, right?
Oh, gosh.
We'll get into it, and we have been all night. We had to hold Kurt back. He almost got into fisticuffs with an unnamed guest.
Hey, Reg BI will do that to me.
Oh, Reg BI, I'm guessing.
I was going to ask,
Exactly.
what do you think the topic was? But I guess that's pretty much. So JW, you came back on the podcast in what seems like forever ago. February of 2020, we met in person at the offices of the Securities and Exchange Commission with...
What's that like?
Yeah, exactly. Don't know if we could do that anymore. With and thankfully with then Commissioner Rob Jackson in his office for the recording, and we focused on market structure issues. And I think, we were probably a bit ahead of the curve, right? As 2021, a year after our recording really came into view, focused on those market structure issues. Everybody is talking about PFOF these days, or payment for order flow. We've had our good friend and your friend as well, Ty Galosh, on a previous episode to dive into that. But you wrote a paper. Yes, what's that? Good friend, not a good friend. Maybe not so good. That's true. He's not here to defend himself, so we can go
We'll wait
there.
for Ty's tweets on that one.
And in that vein, you actually wrote a paper defending the SEC with their position on payment for order flow. Interesting. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. I have, like many relationships, I have a complicated relationship with the SEC. So I did a paper a month ago. My friend Dan Gallagher at Robinhood, and we have been friends for a long time, wrote a paper, told Barron's that he's going to sue the SEC if they ban payment for order flow. Because at least in their equity platform, it forms, a majority of their revenue, right? So I said, if he's going to make a bold claim, I'm going to meet my friend on the debating arena, and I'm going to do a paper. So I have a paper, Why Robinhood's Threat to Sue the SEC is Unlikely to Succeed. And I sent it to Dan to take a look. I'm waiting for Robinhood's comments. Would love to hear from my friends over there. But I think the SEC would succeed, would be able to survive challenge, and we'll go into all of it. But essentially what I do is look at the challenges where the SEC's lost. Those challenges are primarily focused on economic analysis. I've looked at how the economic analysis is likely to look in a new rule banning broker inducements, PFOP, and rebates. And then I say also what's unique about this area is that the SEC has a statutory objective of fairness, which is much more, I think, flexible than what it faces in the corporate governance aspect. There's a fairness directive in the 75 Act amendments and in various other places that regulate both broker-dealers and that regulate exchanges. So, I think they should ban it. I think it's just Such a deep conflict of interest is totally inconsistent with the broker's duty of best execution, which has been described in the law as a fiduciary, having a fiduciary character. I think they should ban it, and I think they'll easily win. And I'm no easy defender of the SEC. In fact, I did a comment letter this week threatening to sue the SEC over the proxy advisor rule, or saying that someone should sue it, and they would win under the APA. But under this PFOF, I think the SEC will win. I think a challenger will lose.
It does sound like a complicated relationship you have with the commission.
It is.
Professor.
I mean, it sounds like you're even-handed, right? You know, you're letting the issues lead you. So I like that. But maybe it's more fun to be the antagonist. I don't know.
It is definitely more fun. Yeah.
And there is an area where you do play that role. But sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that's a good way to segue to crypto if you want to go there.
Yeah, that's exactly. Hey, it's almost like we swapped notes, JW.
Talk of the party here.
So yeah, I mean, I do want to talk about crypto. I know it's something that you've been working on, thinking about with the SEC's Investor Advisory Committee, and recently you've actually been, shall I say, less supportive of the SEC with respect to crypto regulation. Tell us your thoughts or concerns there.
Well, there's a lot to say, but let's start here. The Howey test, 1946, says what is an investment contract and therefore security, and therefore required to register. Right. That old test it goes back a long ways. Goes back to state blue sky laws that preceded the securities laws themselves. So you could call it a 100-year-old test that we're using to regulate crypto. I think it's time to update it. I think it's time for a 21st century version of the Howey test. People have tried to do this. There are some groups that have tried to figure out what a new version of that test would look like. I think the SEC's overexpanded that test, not just for crypto, but over the years. So the original SCOTUS language says solely, one of the four elements is that profit is derived solely from the efforts of others. I've been harping on that. That word's important. That's not like something you just throw out there. SCOTUS chooses their words carefully, solely from the efforts of others. That's not Ripple. And then there is some more complexity, I think, in terms of horizontal and vertical commonality applying to these projects, where I think that so much of the community that creates value here is working toward different purposes and focus on different things such that you don't have that commonality of interest either as on horizontal or vertical level between the miners and the nodes and the people curating the ledger and the speculators. They all have much different interests than people that are investing in a traditional firm. So I think this over-application of the Howey test is vulnerable to challenge, whether the SEC is going to fall in their face in the Ripple case or whether it'll be a case after that. And I might do an amicus brief on this at some point and jump in the fray if the court will let me file, because I think Howey is vulnerable, at least the SEC's over-expansion of it. And I think that if I make a prediction for next year, it's that in some case, maybe Ripple, maybe another, I think the SEC is going to get ahead of their skis and they're going to lose the same way they have in over-application of insider trading doctrine a number of times and a few other ways. I think that's going to be a fun SCOTUS case to have. Maybe we'll be applying the Ripple test going forward after next year. Who knows?
I was going to say the Howey test is obviously named for one of the parties in that issue back in, like you said, the 1940s. Why don't we get the Verret test? I mean, let's not limit it to the actual currency. Let's get someone writing in with some good names here.
You're saying I should do a token offering and then get sued and then I'll be a named party?
Listen, as you know, I am not an attorney, JW. This is not legal advice.
It's a tough road to hoe, but if anyone can do it.
That's right. Oh, man.
We'll see if we can find you counsel somewhere along the way.
Yeah, right.
We'll try to connect you with other guests of the inSecurities podcast, maybe to put that together. And
in that vein, I don't want to just totally fight the man here. I think the SEC, should be reasonable, should accommodate, should be flexible. They've done it before when institutional investors started talking to each other and they said, hey, proxy solicitation rules don't work for us. We'd like to talk to each other. They totally revamped the proxy solicitation rules to deal with the rise of institutional investors. They changed delivery for all the kind of filings to accommodate email-based delivery. They've done stuff like this before. They could do it for crypto if they really had the willingness.
Mm-hmm. We've been polling all of our guests here at this virtual cocktail party, Professor, for New Year's resolutions. And this is something we want to hear from you, maybe personally, but also kind of just securities regulatory hopes for 2022. What do you hope, say, a given agency may resolve to do in 2022 for the betterment of the markets, or are you just going to try to learn Spanish finally this year, Professor?
No es posible.
Further along than many of us.
Yeah. I hope the SEC bans PFOF. I hope the SEC accommodates those token projects that want to register. I hope they take a better view of Howey. I'm going to be disappointed in the latter two, but I think I'm going to win on the first one. My own personal resolution, just seeing the policy debate heat up in Washington over blockchain, over the future of Web3, cryptocurrency, all of it. I think I've sat on the sidelines too long, and I think I'm going to get more involved in 2022. I've done some op-eds about Howey and about the Ripple case, but I haven't done nearly enough. I think the future of corporate governance scholarship is digital autonomous organizations. What are they going to mean for theory of the firm? Because they're not firms. They're not firms at all. And this theory of the firm underlies all of corporate governance law and scholarship. So I think marrying that with the dynamics of DAOs and how they work is going to be the future of corporate governance scholarship. Maybe I won't make any money off of it, but I think I'll be ahead in the law review citation race anyway.
Hey, that counts for something too, right?
A lot of artists aren't recognized until well after they're gone, Professor. So maybe that'll be you in this case.
Well, thanks, boys.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for stopping by to talk to us, and Happy New Year's.
I think I see somebody over there you should go meet.
Yeah, right.
That's right, in our crowded room here. Yeah, happy New Year, and I'm sure we'll be talking in 2022 with whatever we can come up with on the inSecurities podcast. You're always welcome with us.
Thank you. Be well.
So, we've heard from some of our guests what their New Year's resolutions are in the securities, regulatory, enforcement, whatever space. Chris, what's on your mind? What are you wishing for in 2022?
This will be the year, Kurt, that I eat healthy, work out, learn Spanish, ride a bike.
Just like last year.
All those things I started last year in January that didn't pan out. For me, I always try to pick one or two things personally and professionally to kind of focus on. We've got a couple of, procedural systems within our accounting firm and just as professionals otherwise that I'm trying to kind of update. So things about, contacting clients and managing our budgets and making better plans. So that's kind of the boring side of the resolution coin for me. On the exciting side, my wife and I are hopeful that we'll be able to close on a house here in our new city. So that'll be kind of the new resolutions will all be about, upkeep and making sure things are good to nest in for us as we move forward. So kind of open-ended, I don't really have a list of things. Keep going to the gym. I always try to be a little bit nicer to people every year, usually in January. That wears off by March, but try to let people know I appreciate them and their help in my life and my journey. And Kurt, you're a big part of that, so I'll start off 2022 with saying I appreciate being able to do this podcast with you.
Right back at you, buddy.
Yeah, good. I was gonna say hopefully that's reciprocated.
Radio silence.
It gets real awkward here at the virtual party, but Kurt, what are your resolutions? I know you got a lot going on in your life as well.
Yeah, I'm always striving to get the balance right in my life, and the thing that's kind of new for me, it's not that new, but it still feels new, is just adjusting to this work from home. I changed firms in 2021. We've got a new policy at the firm where people can work from wherever they want. So I think I'm going to be in this home office a lot more. Still going to see
Your background's not going to be changing.
Still going to visit friends in DC as often as I can safely do so. But that brings with it a little bit of a rebalancing. So just trying to figure that stuff out. And just really trying to make next year better than last year. Every year, that's something I try to do. If I had,
are you successful every year, Kurt? Was 2021 the best year ever?
I don't know that it was the best year ever, but despite everything going on in the world, I've been very fortunate. It was a pretty good year for us here in the Wolf House. Looking forward to 2022. On my wish list is that everyone who has hung in long enough to hear this like, rate, review, share with
There
your
he
friends.
is.
Yeah, the last minute pitch.
Click the button, smash that subscribe button below.
Absolutely. No, anyway, buddy, Happy New Year's to you. Looking forward to doing this again in 2022.
We've got a lot of great content already on the list for those of you listeners interested in following along, and I know we'll find ways to deal with whatever interesting cases or ideas come up along the way. So it's been a great experience here. 2 years in now, Kurt, to this podcast. We can't be more gracious to our production team at PLI and all the support we've gotten from the Practicing Law Institute's leadership, as well as our firms that we work for have been so great in helping us spend time and effort and some good insights into what we're doing here. So we'll see if we hit that 20,000 download mark here in the next couple weeks, and then to the moon from there.
To the moon. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to inSecurities, a podcast from PLI, the Practicing Law Institute. PLI is a nonprofit provider of authoritative professional services training and continuing education. In an increasingly complex business environment where intricate corporate structures reign, inSecurities can help you make sense of it all. A special thanks goes to the producer of inSecurities, Daniel Peinitz, as well as hosts Chris Ekemoff and Kurt Wolf. For more information about PLI's SEC Institute, or to view hundreds of hours of fresh and relevant on-demand programming covering changes within the securities sector, visit pli.edu/membership and sign up for a privileged membership. These recorded materials are designed for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal, audit, tax, consulting, business, financial, investment, or other professional advice, and it does not create an attorney-client relationship. Please consult a qualified professional advisor before taking any action based on the information herein. Furthermore, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individual participants. These views are not the views of the hosts or their employers. Users of this podcast may save and use the podcast only for personal or other non-commercial educational purposes. No other use, including without limitation, reproduction, retransmission, or editing of this podcast may be made without the prior written permission from PLI.